Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we explore the sources you send us, digging into the details together.
Hello there.
Today, we're really getting into session 79 of the Law of One. It's pretty dense material, often quite profound.
It certainly is.
And our goal here really is to offer let's say, a beautiful, insightful, and positive way through it. We want to make it engaging for you.
Hmm.
So our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is simple. Break down session 79 question by question. We want to give you the maximum detail, the clearest possible understanding of what's going on in this session.
Sounds good. Ready when you are.
Okay, great. Let's start right at the top. Question 79.1, the instrument's condition.
Right, standard check-in, and Rad's response is very brief, as previously stated.
Yeah, just consistent. It shows they're always keeping an eye on the instrument's well-being, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it's a constant baseline check. Then question 2 moves into energy transfer.
79.2, yeah. Is there a danger of too much energy being transferred?
And Rad's answer is a very direct no.
Just flat out no. Okay. That feels reassuring. It kind of implies they know exactly what they're doing, that there are like safety measures in place.
Precisely. An awareness of capacity and protocols. Which leads into the next point, clarifying something from the last session.
Yes, 79.3. The nature of that large energy transfer. Was it sexual?
And Rad confirms this is correct.
Okay. That's maybe unexpected information for some, but it really opens up the idea of different kinds of energy and how they function in this context.
It does. And question 79.4 digs into the function of that energy during the session itself. Why that specific transfer?
Right. What does it do?
Rack explains it serves to strengthen the shuttle, the connection, basically for the contact coming through.
Like reinforcing the channel.
Exactly. Making it clearer, more stable. And crucially, Ra adds that they monitor the instrument constantly. If there's any fluctuation in weakness or pain, they stop.
That's key. Responsible contact, built-in checks. It's about optimizing the link, but safely.
Very much so. Okay, then the topic shifts a bit in 79.5 to the banishing ritual performed before sessions.
Right. The questioner asks about the instrument letting go of the magical personality. Should she maybe keep that persona active?
And Ra's answer here is really insightful about magical practice. It stresses rigorous honesty. You have to know your own abilities.
And specifically for the instrument, Ra advises against holding on to that persona during trance. Why?
Because, according to Ra, she lacks the requisite magical skill while in trance. Trying to maintain it could actually make her more vulnerable.
Interesting. So it's not a judgment, but a practical consideration for the trance state.
Exactly. And Ra does confirm the work itself is indeed magical in nature. It's just a caution, don't try to run before you can walk, essentially.
A really good principle for any kind of deep work, spiritual or otherwise. Okay, so from ritual, we jumped way back in time.
We do. Question 79.6 asks about third density before the big split in polarity, before service to self really became a distinct path alongside service to others.
What was it like back then?
Well, Ross says this has been previously covered and tells the questioner to query for specific interest.
Okay, so a nudge, to be more specific, which the questioner does in 79.7.
Yes, narrowing it down. What about the veil? You know, the forgetting of past lives? Did that exist in a hypothetical third density that was only service to others?
And the
A
answer?
clear no.
Wow. No veil. That's
Yeah.
huge. It suggests the veil we experience is tied directly to the existence of both polarities.
It really does. Imagine a third density experience where you remembered all your past lives. The whole process of learning and growth would be fundamentally different.
Completely. Less rediscovery, maybe more continuous building. So, okay, if the veil wasn't there, what about reincarnation itself? Was that still happening? That's 79.8.
Yes, the question is about the cycle of entering and leaving bodies. Was that the same? Ross says this is correct.
So multiple lives, that part seems consistent regardless of the polarity setup.
It seems to be a core mechanic of third density. Then, 79.9 asks about how long those lives were back then.
And the answer is pretty startling.
It is. Ross says somewhere close to a measure you call a millennium, 1,000 years per incarnation.
1,000 years. And Ra calls this a constant regardless of other factors. Imagine the depth of experience possible in one life.
It certainly reframes our sense of time and learning. So, circling back to the veil, question 79.9s positions it as the primary tool for extending free will, the first distortion.
Was it the main mechanism?
Ra gives a qualified yes. Your correctness is limited. This is the first tool.
First tool, that's the important bit. It implies there was more to it.
Exactly. It set the stage, but wasn't the only element. which leads into 79.11n, the idea that the logos designed the veil intentionally.
To separate conscious and unconscious mind.
Ra confirms yes, a deliberate architectural choice for our kind of experience.
So if the veil was the first tool, 79.11 asks, were there others added later?
The questioner assumes many other tools, but Ra's wording is, there have been refinements.
Refinements. Okay, not necessarily brand new tools, but adjustments, fine-tuning the system. Interesting.
It suggests an ongoing process. Now, the conversation shifts again to the mind of the logos before all this, before the veil, before free will was fully extended. Question 79.13.
The idea is, was the logos' mind simpler back then? Fewer archetypes?
Well, the question gets asked, but then there's an interruption. The instrument experiences pain.
Ah, right. A reminder of the human element, the physical reality of the contact.
Definitely. But after pause, they get back to it. Question 79.14 asks directly, how many archetypes were there initially?
And the answer?
There were 9.
9, a foundational number. And the questioner in 79.15 guesses their structure.
Right, suggesting 3 for mind, 3 for body, 3 for spirit.
And is that right?
Ray confirms this is correct. So we have a basic 3x3 structure for these primordial archetypes.
Okay, framework established. Now the tricky part. Linking these 9 to the tarot we know, question 79.16 tries this for the mind archetypes.
The questioner guesses magician, emperor, chariot. But Ra says this is incorrect.
Ah, so it's not a simple one-to-one mapping, at least not with those specific cards for the initial set.
Seems not. So 79.17 asks, okay, then what were the correspondences?
What are these fundamental 9 called?
Ra explains each complex mind, body, spirit had a matrix, the potentiator, and the significator.
Matrix, potentiator, significator.
Okay. And importantly, Ra adds a clarification. The significator of the complex isn't the same as the significator for, say, just the mind or just the body. There are layers.
Right, different levels of function. That sounds complex. Speaking of complex, 79.18 tries to link the idea of the significator becoming complex to the current archetypes.
And again, Ra says this is incorrect. Seems the questioner is jumping ahead a bit or maybe misinterpreting the terms.
So the meaning of complex itself needs clarification. That's 79.19. What does Ra mean by complex?
Ra defines it simply. To be complex is to consist of more than one characteristic element or concept.
Okay, more than one part. That makes sense. So using that, the questioner goes back in 79.20, asking for more detail on the original matrix, potentiator, and significator for mind, body, and spirit.
But
Before the veil, before things got, well, complex.
And this time, Ray elaborates quite a bit for the mind. Matrix is the unmoving source, the potential. Potentiator is the vast resource, like the deep unconscious, source of creation, self-awareness. Significator is the simple, unified concept of mind itself.
Okay, source, resource, concept for mind. What about body?
Body's matrix is about reflection, opposites of mind, unrestricted movement. Its potentiator is the informed regulator, managing that movement.
Movement and regulation for body. And spirit.
Spirit's matrix is called deepest darkness, linked to its less active nature, its connection to space-time potential. The potentiator of spirit is like a sudden awakening light generation.
Darkness potential and awakening light for spirit. Wow. And Ray explicitly labels these as archetypes 1 through 9 before free will was introduced. That's quite a blueprint.
It really is. A glimpse into the pre-choice structure of consciousness. The contrast between mind's stillness and body's motion, spirit's darkness and light, it's fascinating.
It truly is. Okay, so then came the changes for free will. Question 79.21 proposes the first change was making the link between mind's matrix and potentiator relatively unavailable.
Ra tweaks the wording slightly, preferring relatively more mystery-filled than relatively unavailable.
Ah, mystery fill. That's a great nuance. Not cut off, just veiled, less obvious, creating space for exploration.
Exactly. It introduces the unknown. And the questioner, in 79.22, rephrases this as creating a veil.
Which Ra confirms.
This is correct. So the veil is specifically between the matrix, the source conscious seed, and potentiator, resource unconscious of the mind.
And 79.23 connects this to modern terms. This veil is between the conscious and unconscious mind.
Ra again confirms this is correct, bridging the cosmology to psychology.
So why did the Logos do this? 79.24 suggests it was to give the conscious mind more freedom by partitioning it off from the vast, maybe overwhelming unconscious potentiator. The questioner uses the term uneducated portions of consciousness.
Ra agrees, but qualifies it. This is roughly correct.
Roughly, meaning directionally right, but maybe missing some subtleties?
Possibly. And when asked to de-roughen it in 79.25, Ra basically says, not yet.
There is intervening material before we may do so.
Right.
Sequence matters. Can't skip steps.
Exactly. It highlights the structured way this information unfolds. Then, 79.26 asks about the early stages. Did they just watch this simple veiling experiment play out first?
Or did it get complicated quickly?
Ra clarifies. There have been a great number of successive experiments. It wasn't just one setup. It was iterative.
Like a series of cosmic R&D projects. Okay, so what was the result of the original veiling experiment? That's 79.27.
Rob points back to previous answers. The outcome has been a more vivid, varied, and intense experience of creator by creator.
Ugh, the core purpose again. Richer experience for the one. Makes sense. But did this first experiment immediately lead to service to self? That's the big question in 79.28.
And Ra gives a really crucial answer here. Yes, early Logoi did produce both service to self and service to others entities immediately after the veiling. Polarity emerged right away.
But there's a catch.
Yes. Harvestability wasn't immediate. Those early entities weren't necessarily ready to graduate, so to speak. This led to the refinements of the archetypes later on.
So the veil opened the door for polarity, but the system needed tweaking for that polarity to lead to progress or graduation. Fascinating. Okay, so at this point, 79.29 asks, what was the setup? Just the 9 archetypes and the new veil?
Ra says there were 9 archetypes and many shadows.
Shadows. What does that mean? 79.3 asks if it's like small biases.
No, Ra defines shadows as the inchoate thoughts of helpful structures not yet fully conceived.
So not negative things, but
Yeah.
like blueprints for future archetypes, seeds of potential improvements.
Exactly. More like nascent ideas for development. Which connects to 79.31, was choice itself present at this point, when the first service-to-self polarity appeared.
Did the veiling create choice?
Ress says choice is implicit in the veiling or separation of 2 archetypes. The act of separating creates the possibility of choosing between them. But Ra adds, refining this concept took many experiences.
So the potential for choice was inherent in the structure, but mastering it was an evolutionary process. Makes sense. Now, 79.32 brings up a complex comparison. Magical potential before versus after this extension of free will, especially looking towards the end of fourth density.
Right. And the answer is kind of counterintuitive. Ra says magical potential in 3rd and 4th density was far greater before the change.
Greater potential before free will was fully extended, but...
There was far, far less desire or will to use this potential.
Whoa. So more raw power available, but less inclination to tap into it. That's wild.
It is. And 79.33 tries to clarify this, specifically about potential at the end of 4th density.
How does Rack explain it?
Ra states, magical ability is the ability to consciously use the so-called unconscious. Because the veil separates conscious from unconscious. The maximal ability existed before that separation, before this type of free will.
So the veil, by enabling free will exploration, also limited direct access to that deep unconscious power. A fundamental trade-off, it seems.
That seems to be the implication. Okay, so then the questioner tries again to map current archetypes back to the originals in 79.34, Magician and High Priestess as Matrix and Potentiator of Mind.
And Ross says.
Still intervening material needed. Can't jump ahead.
Right, stick to the sequence. Okay, 79.35. How about Empress as catalyst? Emperor as experience of the mind?
Ross says the questioner perceives correct relationships, but the statements are far too rigid.
Too black and white. Needs more nuance.
Exactly. These first 4 archetypes have a great deal of dynamic interrelationship. They flow into each other.
Okay, not static boxes. Then 79.36 proposes the Hierophant as a sorter or governor of these mental effects.
Ross says that, while thoughtful, the heart of the supposition is incorrect.
Incorrect. So what is the Hierophant then? That's 79.37.
Well, Ra initially says it's the significator of the body complex, but then clarifies that the characteristics the questioner mentioned relate more to the significator of the mind complex. The heart of the mind complex, Ra says, is the dynamic entity which absorbs, seeks, and attempts to learn.
The active learning principle of the mind. Okay. So 79.38 asks, is the Hierophant a link between mind and body?
Ra acknowledges a strong relationship between all the significators, mind, body, spirit, but calls the statement too broad. It's more specific than just a simple link.
Precision matters. Okay, shifting to Archetype 6, the lovers, and 79.39. Is it about merging conscious and unconscious?
Ra corrects this, saying it may be more properly called the transformation of the mind.
Transformation into what, 79.4 asks?
Ra explains that Archetype 6 shows the student of the mysteries needing to choose betwixt the light and the darkened mind. It's about the choices made during the mind's transformation.
Ah, the choice aspect again. That fits with traditional interpretations too. Now, 79.41 offers an interpretation of the chariot, archetype 7.
And this one Ra really praises, calling it most perceptive. Ra calls archetype 7 the path, the way, or the great way of the mind.
The great way. That sounds significant.
Very. It's a summary of the first 6 archetypes, the kingdom or fruits of appropriate travel through the mind, culmination, integration.
Wow, okay. But the instrument is tiring, so Ra suggests one more query. The questioner circles back to the Hierophant in 79.42, still seeking clarity.
And Ra gives a deeper explanation this time. The Hierophant is the significator of mind, but made complex by the interplay of conscious and unconscious. The mind evolved. It became an actor with free will, with will itself.
So the Hierophant represents the mind's will to know.
Yes, but crucially, it's also about the motivation for knowing and how that knowledge is used. The potential is vast, Ra says.
Right, the responsibility that comes with knowing. Okay. That's a lot on the archetypes. The session then wraps up with practicalities in 79.43.
Just checking on the instrument's comfort. Ra says all is well, but advises using hand comfort aids, explaining the session was a bit shorter because of those considerations.
A gentle reminder of the physical side of this work. And finally, 79.44 is the thank you in closing.
Indeed, Ra acknowledges their care, leaves in love and light, urges rejoicing in the Creator's power and peace. Adonai.
And that's session 79. Wow, that was quite the journey through the mechanics of consciousness, wouldn't you say? From the veil to the original 9 archetypes, the birth of choice, the nature of magical power.
It's incredibly dense and layered information about how our reality, our experience, was structured.
Absolutely. We've really unpacked the evolution of the mind, the interplay between conscious and unconscious, the very foundation of free will as Ra presents it. It gives you a lot to think about. So as you, our listener, reflect on all this, maybe consider this. How does knowing about this deliberate veiling, this mystery-filled quality designed into our consciousness, affect how you see your own path of learning and growth? Does understanding the architecture change how you navigate the journey?
It's a deep question about the nature of our experience.
It really is. Thank you so much for navigating that complex session with us.
It was fascinating to revisit. My pleasure.
And thank you for joining us for this deep dive into session 79 of the Law of One. We hope breaking it down like this offered some clarity and sparked new insights. Maybe next time, session 80 awaits.
Always more to explore.
Definitely. We're committed to exploring this knowledge together. Until our next deep dive, take care and may your journey be filled with understanding, love, and light.